Hey, we're on. We're live. All right. Thank you guys. Welcome to Speak Easy. Um,
Welcome.
so everybody can see us and tune in that you're okay. Now, we have
Gabriel Bush.
Gabriel Bush is my co-host. I'm Marie Munoz. And today we are interviewing Robert D. Jackson.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you are here with us today.
Thank you for
And
having me.
Awesome. We had some technical difficulties starting out, and but we're okay now. So we're good. We're going to go through. So first of all, I know that you have a project called Torch.
Yes.
And I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about that because I wasn't aware of it before. But
Absolutely, yeah. So Torch is actually a fiscally sponsored nonprofit based here in Houston. And what we do is we specialize in arts entrepreneurship, training, and coaching for emerging artists and creative entrepreneurs. So essentially what that means is if you're pursuing the creative arts or pursuing music or any sort of specialization as an independent artist, we give you the resources you need to create a family sustainable income.
Okay.
You know, we know that there's a lot of people who want to pursue the arts and entertainment but don't
Right.
really have the resources to scale.
Right.
And so we give you that, we strap you with that extra layer of protection to ensure that you're not being taken advantage of. You understand legal contracts, business plans, all the more preliminary foundational things that are essential to ensuring your success as an artist.
So how did you come up with that?
Absolutely.
And
So
when did it start?
yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, in 2016, me and a group of friends mine graduated from NYU Tisch, and there were people who went straight to Broadway, and there were some that became starving artists living in New York City. Well, I was like, well, why is it that people with the equal amount of talent are in completely different financial brackets,
Right.
not based on favor, right?
yeah.
And based on having connections or all these things that were limited. And so I was like, you know what? I think after graduating, I'm going to go back and get my master's and focus on arts entrepreneurship and get a better understanding of how I can provide my community, specifically the artist community, with things that are necessary in order to be successful. So it really started off of a need. You know, me and my friends were like, we don't know how we're going to navigate this industry in a way that we can not only pay our bills but also have disposable income.
Right.
And, you know, living in New York City, that's extremely expensive. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, we need to figure out options. And so luckily from a research-driven standpoint and data-driven standpoint, I now can use that professional development that I got in graduate school to apply to the work that I'm doing today.
So how long were you in New York?
So I moved to New York in 2012. I graduated high school in 2012 from A-Leaf Hastings High School. Shout out to A-Leaf and the SWAT.
To the SWAT?
You know, shout out. And I went to New York on a full ride scholarship. I was a Bill and Melinda Gates recipient of the Gates Millennium Scholarship,
Awesome.
Wow.
also a National Coca-Cola Scholar amongst some other prominent scholarship awards. And that allowed me and secured me to have all of my education fully funded. So
That's awesome.
all of my undergraduate, which was $376,000, was fully
Wow.
funded
Wow.
over 4 years. My master's, which was $179,000 for 2 years. And then I'm deferring my doctorate right now, which is in the same subject. It's at Johns Hopkins in entrepreneurial leadership in education, in efforts to, again, use my applied dissertation to focus in on Torch and the work I'm doing with Torch.
Wow.
That's awesome.
What tell us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely,
Where did you
yeah.
come from?
How'd you grow
So,
up?
born and raised on the South Side. Shout out Third Ward, shout out the SWAT.
course.
Born and raised between the Southwest and Southeast. My mother and father had me while they were in high school. So I grew up in a single-parent household because I lost my father at 5 years old to gun violence. You know, and
You
that
were
was
little.
I was, you know, really little. Yeah, 1999. My father,
Wow.
you know, lost his life, and you know, I lacked positive black role models, and so that didn't stop my drive or my commitment to the things I was passionate about.
Right.
Luckily, I had theater and competitive acting, speech and debate to allow me to persevere and push through. And after getting recognized on a state, local, and national level, it sort of became clear that I should pursue acting in post-secondary education.
So is that something your mom kind of got you into to have an outlet, or is that something you just discovered and liked on your own?
Well, I think it started with a mandatory class in 6th grade in theater. You know, when you're in like middle school or intermediate school,
Right.
they make you take certain art classes, right?
Yeah,
And I
your
was like, well,
electives.
I can't draw, I can barely write. You know, so
Right.
maybe I'll go in this theater
Try
class.
theater, yeah.
And I'm competitive, you know, by nature. And they were like, if you turn in the sign-in sheet first or your permission slip, you can audition for the play. So I was like, I don't know what a play is, but I'll be the first in line the next day to turn in my signed waiver from my parent. And
Right.
so that began the process. A shout out Ms. Julie Ryan, who's now a high school theater teacher in A-Leaf ISD,
Awesome.
who really opened that door for me. And then I think A-Leaf really had a great fine arts program and department, and a lot of resources and funding was given to the arts. And so I went to what you would consider in the eyes of someone else, like a fine arts accelerated middle school. You know, it wasn't like recognized in that way, but we, you know, were trained and equipped with things that people were doing on the high school level as 7th and 8th graders. And so it was really great to have that level of like fostering strong acting abilities at a really young age. And then when I got to high school, I just sort of blasted off. So as I mentioned before, you know, I did competitive speech and debate, so I was like a national champion, 4-time national champion, and state champion.
Did
and all
you get
these
to
other
travel
things.
doing that?
Yeah, it allowed me to really go out and, you know, get on planes every weekend and fly.
That's good.
We traveled to Harvard 3 years, and I was a finalist and placed at Harvard. And so it was a great opportunity for me to change my worldview. You know, a lot of us,
Definitely.
you know, from the South Side don't have the opportunity to leave our corner or our blocks or our communities. But luckily with speech and debate, it gave me that exposure to have new friends from other school districts, to have friends from different cities, to build a network. And then from there, it allowed me to say, well, maybe I can go to New York and pursue, you know, my education. I'd never been to New York when I went up there, you know.
So that was the goal before you even got to New York. Was your mind?
Yes.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to do at a young age, and so luckily I'm still pursuing my dream, which is exciting.
That's awesome. So between high school and now, I'd say, how did you kind of arrive at where you're at now?
Absolutely. So last December, about a year ago, I wrapped up my master's, and I figured I wanted to do something that was meaningful to me as it relates to the arts. And so luckily, the Houston Arts Alliance in the city of Houston has increased the amounts of funds they give to local artists, right? And so luckily, I was just in a place where I could go from one to the next and receive an annual grant up to $15,000 to produce my show.
Okay.
And so it just was a divine timing. You know, it really just came at the right time and went from one to the next, and it allowed me to be back with my family and also prioritize my independent project.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do some voice acting too, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. How'd you get into that? That's not something a lot of people even think about.
Yeah, in fact, you know, there's not a lot of diverse voices
Right.
in the voice acting community.
Right.
And so luckily with me having a different range of doing different voices, like for instance, I can talk like a little baby,
Wow.
you know, or I can speak like a Nigerian, or, you know, we can
Yeah.
do different.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Love that accent.
Or like you can be
I wasn't
British, bro,
expecting
or
none
like
of that.
different stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or you can do different languages.
Right.
So because I didn't know about the voice acting, but when you say voice acting, you do voiceovers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the recording arts, anything that's recorded, I do voice acting, recorded music, all the things that are pre-recorded.
Okay. Cool.
And so it's not many people know about it or monetize off of it, I'd say.
They don't.
I need to get into that.
But you definitely should. You
Yeah.
definitely should.
You don't have to be as talented as that guy either. You can just use your normal
I can't
voice.
do those voices,
Yeah.
but I do like to do voiceovers. That's how I kind of got into radio and stuff like that.
That's
but
amazing.
I think it's cool. So we were talking about how you kind of got to where you're at today. So you were talking about the voiceovers and the show.
Yes. Yeah, and so I'll talk a little bit about Baba and me. So 2 years ago, on my 24th birthday, I decided as I finished my undergrad, I wanted to do a show for my loved ones and friends up in New York City.
Okay.
And what's significant about that is my father didn't make it to the age of 24, right? He passed away at 23. So at 12 years old, I can recall the time when I was in fear of not living past 24.
Right.
So as a way to reckon with all of that, I decided to use my talents and strengths to put up a show and perform in a way that, you know, I can come together with my father and sort of honor him in that way. And that was the beginning of what is now a live theatrical production, Baba and Me, A Young Man in Search of His Father.
And we have a clip of it. If we can get that up, we're going to see a little bit. And this is...
Yeah, so this is from 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. We're doing this for all the ladies, you know what I'm saying? Taking you back to 93, when Pops was knocking the boots. You see, we got Ben and Reggie on keys and drums. So be sure to sit back and enjoy yourself, all right? Tonight, I'm thinking about all the things that we used to do. Houston, Texas, Airport, late nights playing DJ Screw. I spit game after my game at Jack Yates High School. You caught my eye, damn, you find you're about to be mine. Ooh, 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 ooh. Good love and body rocking, rocking boots all night long. Yeah, yeah. Making love until we're tired, till the break of dawn. And all, give me that good love. Somebody rocking my boots. Oh, give me that good love. Somebody rocking my boots. Yeah, give me that good love. Somebody rocking my boots. Give me that good love. Somebody rocking my boots.
Okay. So that was your performance in New York City.
Yes, New York
Right.
City, 42nd Street at the Green Room 42. Shout out the Green Room 42. Shout out Reggie and Ben, who supported me on keys and drums.
Awesome.
And so that was one of the opening songs from
Are they
2
from
years
Houston
ago.
too?
No, they're actually they went to school with me up at NYU.
Oh, okay.
So actually, Ben is on tour right now with Aladdin, and then Reggie is
Oh.
in graduate school studying the same thing that I studied.
Okay. And I see that do you always kind of incorporate a little bit of theatrics or comedy in your performances or vice versa?
Yes, so I like to use heightened language, which I consider the African American vernacular, right? Similar to Shakespeare, so I like to make sure that I sort of use the oral histories that I come from and bring that to the stage. Comedy is natural as well. Singing and music, live instruments. So luckily with this upcoming production, we have three backup vocalists. Shout out Brittany Balma, shout out Jasmine Crum, shout out Denise Ward. And, you know, we're going to take it up a notch, you know, like that was 2 years ago as the beginning, and now we've had 2 years since then. And so it's going to be a lot more in depth and more powerful in regards to the story that I'll be telling.
Okay. And Baba and Me is going to be at Match Theater November 14th and 16th.
Through
Is that-
16th.
through the 16th.
Yes.
So Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Is it showing
Okay.
anywhere else or just there?
Yeah, so we're going to start there. It's going to be the beginning of our tour, and then we're going to make, over the next 2 years, a 10 one-week residency opportunity across 10 different cities in the U.S.
Right.
But we wanted to begin the process here in Houston, right? Start at the roots.
Yes.
And then the tree goes on and on. But, yeah, we'll be premiering at Matchbox 2. November 14th through 16th. We have 4 showings. We have an 8 p.m. showing on Thursday, opening night. We have another on 8 p.m. on that Friday, and then we have a matinee at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. On that Saturday.
That's awesome. I've been to Match. It's a really nice theater. I went for it was like a poetry show, and it was a very nice place. So I do like Match. And you had something, a question?
So what else do you have going on for 2020?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So luckily, going back to the City of Houston and the Houston Arts Alliance, I've been able to leverage the grant opportunities that they provide local artists. So they have another grant, more of a micro grant called Let Creativity Happen, where they encourage local artists to take creative risks. And so I have 3 projects in development that are also funded by the City of Houston. One of those is a language project that I'll be premiering as soon as we finish this project. Going into next year, I'll be performing in Arabic French, and Chinese.
Okay.
That project is called A3L, across 3 languages. After that, as we close out the academic year, I'll be doing a documentary theater performance where I use documentary filmmaking and theater to come together, and that's built on activism and youth voices. And so have some spoken word poetry and things like that potentially happening at Match.
Okay.
And then I also have a little puppet project that'll be taking over social media called called Rue's World, where Little Rue, little puppet, is going to be doing freestyle raps to 90s instrumentals.
Okay.
So
Sounds
there's several other things.
Is
but
it
I
like
think-
is it going to be like a kids show? Is it a
So it's think of the Boondocks,
Okay.
right? Think of what Comedy Central is doing right now with puppets,
adult humor.
with adult humor.
Okay.
So it's going to be Little
Crank
Rue.
Yankers or something like that?
Exactly.
Something like that? Okay.
Exactly. So just really leveraging the times, and I did puppeteering and all that in school, and so
Do everything.
Yeah, you do. I was about to ask
Yeah.
you. You know, people ask me
awesome.
like, how do you find the time to do, everything you do? So I'm asking you, how do you find the time to do?
well, luckily, another co-producer of this production is Rinman Entertainment, which I happen to be the CEO of, and we promote the Renaissance spirit, right? Being multidimensional, multi-hyphenate, which as a person of color in this industry, you have to have 7 different jobs from the jump, right? To
Right.
separate yourself from the other incredible artists of color that have 7 jobs, right? And so it sort of comes with the territory. Not that I want to be doing 7+ things, but that's just what is recognized and sort of revered as a thing that not many people have the capacity to do.
Right.
And so that just came from probably having a short attention span at a young age and balancing 12 different things at one time, and then really being encouraged by that and continuing to do it. And I've just sort of been able to take those 12 different things and have them all be things that I am doing. And so they're all on brand and they all make sense, but they're not as spread out as they used to be.
Right. What's your motivation to really, is it for the love of the art? Do you ever feel like you have to prove anything, or what's your motivation to pushing forward to keep doing more and more new projects?
That's a great question. Well, I think first off, there were a lot of people that invested in me at a very young age, right? Going back to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Coca-Cola Scholars Program, where they literally believed in me being one of the leaders of tomorrow or for the future, right? And so if I have that social responsibility as an artist, and as an artist to go back to my community and do this work, at least from the onset, in the beginning of my career, it's the least I can do. Take all the resources I gained up in New York, go back into my community, share in a way that allows people to be empowered by that new information that they've obtained, and then allow it to create community in ways that collaboration hasn't happened here in Houston.
Right.
And I think that there's a need for that. And so I think what drives me is knowing the longer goal. I think I'm a visionary by nature, and I'm always thinking about 2040 and not tomorrow. Right, but I know that it's going to be a long process and it takes time. You just got to go with the flow and take it day by day at the same time. So finding that balance.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
We're almost close to the end. I do have something that I had asked you to send me a song, and you did of a friend of yours, and we're going to cut to that, but not right now. I just wanted to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So much for coming.
Of course.
And you did tell us what you want to, what your future goals for 2020 are, right?
Yes.
You're good. Okay. So with that being said, we want to. I guess we're not to the thank you for watching yet. No, what I wanted to say was every Sunday at 2 p.m. we're trying for 2 p.m. Today was a different situation, so but every Sunday at 2 p.m. we're doing Knowledge Speaks, and the show is really about inspiring artists, people who are doing things here in Houston and abroad, and people that inspire me actually in my life as well, and poets, singers, artists, actors, actresses, photographers, filmmakers, things like that is what you're going to see every Sunday with me and Gabe. And what else was I going to say? We are next Sunday. What I wanted to tell you was we have Annika Chambers, 2019 Blues Music Award winner, is going to be with us next Sunday, and so I'm excited for that. We're going to have a little mini show going on. So But we are going to cut. Can you tell me the name of your friends?
Yeah, so we'll be playing John Cena from Show My Josie. Shout out to Limpopo, South Africa. Show My Josie.
My Josie.
Show My Josie, yes. And actually,
Wow.
so what's great about her, I'll just briefly mention, shout out Show My Josie again. She's speaking in Swana, which is her mother tongue, her mother language, her
Okay.
mother tongue, also her home language in South Africa. And
Cool.
not sure if you know too much about South Africa, but they have 11 official national languages, right?
Okay, I didn't know that.
And so with her, she really speaks Swana, her language, which is not really spoken widely across the world, but she uses it in a genre that's really popular in South Africa, known as ngom. So it's GQOM, ngom. And what it is, it's house music mixed with Afro. It's like Afro house, with a new mix to it. And so if
Yeah.
you hear the way in which
That's what she's
this
saying.
genre, if you were to categorize this genre, it'd be a part of the ngom category.
Okay.
And she's a pioneer in her language because no one's really doing this in Swana.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
interesting.
does she? And I'm assuming she travels. And you know what? I did look her up. I saw she was on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
She was just on Kelly Clarkson as well,
Okay.
and John Cena surprised her, and she had a crazy reaction. So check that out when you
Aw,
can.
I am. I'm
Check
gonna
that out
check
when you can,
out. I'm
guys.
gonna check that out. Okay, that's all the time we have for today, guys. I'm glad that you guys tuned in. Very glad we have our guests here today, and that's about it.
That's it. Thank you guys for tuning in to Speakeasy, and join us next Sunday.
Bye.